Alright, this is John Cola with OKRaw.com. Today we have another exciting episode for you. In this episode, I'm going to share with you guys some of the raw food wisdom that, comes across in my head every once in a while that I want to share with you guys. And to let you guys know, I've been into a raw foods, fruit and vegetable dominated diet now for the last 23 years. And definitely I believe it's one of the, longest periods of time that actually a YouTuber has been doing raw foods. There's not too many YouTubers that consistently, on an everyday basis, make several videos a week to put out to share with you guys. So in this episode, I want to share with you guys some of the wisdom that I've learned over the times that's actually hard to convey, or that is not often taught. I mean, I think it's great that raw food YouTubers have videos on recipes, and raw food YouTubers have videos on telling you to eat raw foods and all this stuff. But I like to get down to the nuts and bolts and like the how to really be successful, right? One of the videos I thought of making the other day is like how I take care of my produce, right? When I get all this produce, like how do I rotate it? How do I keep it from going bad? How do I eat it before it goes bad? If it starts to go bad, what do I do with it? And I want to do like an in-depth video on how to do that, because so many people that are new in it don't have the skills, and they might end up buying a lot of produce and then it goes bad, and then it's like it doesn't do you any good, it doesn't do the planet any good, and it doesn't do your pocketbook any good. So if you want a video like that, hey, give a thumbs up. It's going to be a pretty in-depth video, because I can't just explain it in 2 sentences. Like, I go through a lot of different things to make sure my produce gets used and into me instead of in my compost pile that ends up feeding my garden. But anyways, today's episode, what I want to talk about is what is the best raw foods, right? And depending on who you ask, you're going to get a different answer. And I have a little bit different view on this, And if you've been watching me for any period of time, you would say, like, what's the best? If John answered what's the best raw foods, he's going to say fruits and vegetables. And I'll say especially the leafy green vegetables, other vegetables, and fruits, right? In that order, because, fruits are relatively easy to eat. But the vegetables, for many people, they may struggle with getting actually enough vegetable matter in to counterbalance the amount of fresh fruit they're eating. Hey, I love fruit. Fruit's a great food. But, everything needs to be in balance in our lives, and nothing should be out of balance, okay? And the reason for this episode today is because I was actually eating my breakfast today. My breakfast today in my garden are organic strawberries. And these are Baja Classic strawberries from Mexico. And as I was eating these strawberries, I was like, you know what? These strawberries really aren't that good. I mean, you're thinking, John, but they're organic, man. You might, if you went to Whole Foods, you probably paid $4.99 for them, and they're not that good. But they should be good, right? Because you paid a lot of money for them, and they're organic. So the thing I want to share with you guys, and I've talked about this before, is that the produce industry as a whole, is not in business to grow the most nutrient-dense foods. They're in business to make a buck. That's why all businesses are in business to make a buck, and so they're gonna do whatever they can to produce a product that looks good, stays fresh, that doesn't spoil, doesn't go bad, because they're gonna lose their profit, right? So in many cases, many fruits in the store, whether it's organic or not, are picked actually unripe, because if they're picked optimally ripe, they would expire and go bad really fast, right? And if they're picked a little bit before they're fully ripe, right, they're gonna last a lot better because they're more hard and firm. They're more crunchy. They're not as soft. They don't have as much sugar in there. There's not as much, nutrients in there either. And so as I was eating these, I was like, I should make a video about like produce quality. And I've done produce quality videos before, but talk about specifically like what is the best produce? Like what are the best fruits and vegetables? Like honestly, like instead of eating these organic strawberries that I got from Mexico, and it's maybe not so sweet as they are, I would rather go over here to my achataba plants. And I'd go over here, let's see, where would I go? Over to here, there's like a little center nub coming up. A center growth tip. Let me go ahead and pull one out for you guys. And I'd rather break this growth tip off right here. And this is kind of like known as achataba. It's related to angelica. It's in the celery family. But I'd rather eat this stem, right? At this stage, it's nice and tender. At this stage, it's kind of like sweet. I have like a sweetness, and actually I would say personally it's sweeter than the strawberries, because strawberries ain't too sweet. But also it has like some kind of like bitter overtones, right? And to me, this tastes good. To you guys, if you're here, I've fed achataba leaves to visitors in my garden. They've said it tasted bitter. But to me, this tastes actually quite good. Like a stronger celery, but like a different flavor. With a sweetness that I can't explain. Of course, this is the springtime when new growth is popping out. And it's the best time to eat this in the summer when it gets hotter. It's definitely not as good tasting. But yeah, so I'd rather eat like greens out of my garden, fresh picked, instead of the strawberries. You're thinking, why is that, John? The strawberries are good, man. They got lycopene. Well, yeah. Some of the factors, I'm going to go over the factors actually that I want you to take into consideration, to determine the best food for you in your personal situation and where you live, wherever you live, right? So there's a lot of different factors. Like number one, people think, John, if it's like expensive at the store, it's got to be the best, right? Because I paid $5.99 for one carton of strawberries at Whole Foods. And if you do that, that's great. Just because you're paying a lot of money at Whole Foods doesn't mean it's the best. Whole Foods doesn't get any better quality food, organic food, than any other supermarket selling organic food. I mean, they do work with certain, local farmers in some instances, so the food may be fresher. But most of the things sold at Whole Foods, let's not kid ourselves, are just things you could buy other places for probably a lot less. So actually, I like Sprouts Farmers Market, if you guys have those, or Trader Joe's, generally are less expensive than Whole Paycheck. And so yeah, let's kind of try to rule that out. Just because it's more expensive doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be better. That being said, if you go to a place like a farmer's market where things sometimes can be more expensive, generally they are better because they're picked more fresh, so strawberries can be picked the day before, and shown up in the market the next day. And if you ever buy strawberries at the farmer's market, they always go bad really fast compared to the strawberries you buy in the store. That could last like, easily a week in my fridge with the Berry Breeze machine. So yeah, that's one consideration is the price. That is not so important. Another consideration you guys should have is, what are the nutrients in the food that you're considering eating, right? I mean, I know, almost lost the strawberries. So one of the factors I want you guys to take into consideration when determining the best food for you at that time is what's the nutrition quality in the food, What percentage of water is that food or that fruit or vegetable, right? Are you dehydrated? Are you working out a lot? Do you need like more water content? If it's a nice hot sunny day, watermelon might be one of the best things to get you hydrated. Or actually I like coconut water a lot. What besides the water though, what other vitamins and minerals, which are really important, but also more importantly to me these days are the phytonutrients, right? I mean, strawberries are great, they have lycopene, but the Ashitaba has these things known as chalcones that are like anti-cancer. And so if you've been pounding strawberries for the last week, and you're not getting some of the nutrients from Ashitaba, these may be the very nutrients you need to disease-proof yourself. And hey, you got a lot of strawberry nutrients, but you don't have Ashitaba nutrients. So I strive to grow many different kinds of greens and different foods and vegetables, fruits in my garden, so I could always get a full spectrum of different nutrients. So I want you guys to take that in consideration when choosing the foods you're going to eat. Like if you're at the store and you've been getting apples for the past week, and they're good, hey, get some oranges the next time, get some papaya the next time, get some mango the next time, if they're ripe, of course. Now, aside from nutrients, and it'd be just kind of boring to just eat on nutrients alone, you might want to also eat on, what you feel like eating, right? I mean, I got a nice jackfruit here. It smells really good. It's nice and soft, really nice color. I'm going to be eating that a little bit later today. But, to me, I want to eat the strawberries first because they're going bad. So, that's another consideration. Like, what do you have that's actually going bad that you might need to eat now or lose it? Some other considerations are, when was it harvested, right? That's huge. That is not often talked about or thought about, especially if you just go to the store and you buy produce. You don't know when the heck it was harvested. If you go to the farmer's market, you actually ask the farmer because hopefully they're harvesting the produce. You can say, hey, when was this harvested? And hopefully they're going to say this morning if they're really good farmers. And if they're not, they might have said, oh, it's been in cold storage for a little bit, especially if you're buying apples right now in the farmer's market. I mean, they are harvested like 6 months ago at this point. So I think that's a very important question to ask. Also, another consideration you guys might have is it organic? And organic is only a certain defined set of standards, meaning that they're, not adding basically chemical pesticides or chemical fertilizers to the soil. And it doesn't mean that it'll necessarily be higher quality than conventional produce. That being said, in my experience and based on some of the testing I've seen in general, but not always, are the organic produce a higher quality. So don't just, oh, it's organic, it's going to be better for sure. Not always. There's sometimes when I got like non-organic mangoes that are sweeter than organic mangoes, and that's because, not only is it the growing practices, but it's also the ripeness when they're harvested. So in fruits, it's definitely important. I think ripeness, if you want a sweet fruit, actually trumps that it was grown organically, because I've eaten many organic fruits that are just really not that good. That being said, organic, if you do buy organic, it has a higher probability of having more phytonutrients, because literally when they're not spraying pesticides on the plants have to fend for themselves, and they make more nutrients to basically resist pest pressures, fungus pressures, disease pressures generally. Another factor I want you guys to take in consideration is how far did this produce travel? The farther the produce travels, like this jackfruit came from Mexico, the strawberries came from Mexico, but I got all these greens from my garden. The greens are not traveling at all, right? I pick them and eat them. And so that might be important. People are on a local diet, and while I definitely advocate, eat as much local foods as you can, I think also a local diet can be very limiting, because if you're on a local only diet, this time of year I'd be eating a lot of greens, maybe some citrus, but I would not get to enjoy jackfruit or strawberries and all the phytonutrients contained within them. So I always want people to be flexible on what they're doing. I don't always eat only the foods out of my garden. I try to focus on eating as much foods out of my garden as possible first, and then fill in with other things to give myself variety and more calories, because obviously the greens don't have a lot of calories and the fruits have a lot more calories than the greens. Another factor that's not often talked about in raw foods, but is talked about in living foods, like I visited my friend Kailash at the Ann Wigmore Institute. We had a really nice episode. I'll put a link down below. It was titled like, "Don't just eat raw foods," right? And the whole gist of that episode was to eat living foods, eat things that are more alive, they're more vibrant, they have more of what's called life force energy within them. Of course, strawberries that are not quite going bad yet, but soon to be, that have been picked a week ago, have much less lower life force as well as nutrients than, my strawberry plants that are actually currently in flower that I don't have any strawberries yet on, maybe in another month, that I pick and eat, right? So strawberries, less life force, but of course my greens that are still in the garden growing that I just picked a little bit earlier, this has a lot more life force, because it's a lot fresher. And that's something that's not really talked about, right? And I want you guys to eat really life force rich foods. So the easiest ones you guys could eat, especially if you can't garden outside, is to grow the sprouts indoors. Sprouts, you basically need seeds, you need some water and a container or a sprout vessel, whether that's a jar or sprout bag, to grow sprouts, and you could have more life force in your life. Of course, another thing that's really popular to grow inside is the microgreens. And that's one thing, actually, I will admit I need to do. I travel so much, so it's hard to keep my microgreens going, because they need everyday attention. But it's not hard. You just basically mist them with a little bit of water. So it's really easy to do. I'll post a link down below to a video I did on growing the microgreens. So I talked a little bit earlier about like if it's organic or not, right? And people think, oh, if it's organic, it's good. If it's conventional, it's bad. And I'll be the first to tell you guys that if you guys can't find organic, or you guys can't afford organic, right? Conventional produce is still better, in my opinion, than anything else in the entire grocery store. So don't feel bad if you don't have the money to get organic. You can't go to the produce terminal like I do to get the super killer deals. Buy organic if you could afford it, if it's possible for you. And if not, conventional produce is still like the best thing you could do. And I like to teach, of course, good, better, best. It's not about all or nothing. John, I'm not all organic. I'm a failure. I don't even eat all organic. I eat probably 95% plus organic. But there's some things like the jackfruit, you can't find that organic. So would I rather not eat jackfruit because it's not organic? No, I'm going to eat some jackfruit. And, I try to find the produce items that actually have relatively low spray amounts and are not sprayed or coated with different fungicides after harvest. But I just do the best I can, like I encourage you guys to do. And in an ideal world, I'd grow all my own produce. And one day, I'm going to grow 99% of everything me and my family eats. But I'm not there yet. I'm just still in progress. So while people think organic is better than conventional, in some cases it is, some cases it's not, what's more important is actually the growing practices that are being used to grow your crops. And if you go to the grocery store, you're going to never know the growing practices the big industrial agriculture farm uses to grow your food. But luckily, if you go to a farmer's market, or if you grow it yourself like I do, you will know the exact growing practices. I know the exact soil mixture that I put in here, including rock dust, worm castings, compost, all kinds of other additives. Actually, the soil that I'm using actually is an X clean green, which is basically equivalent to organic certified cannabis. So like after he's done growing his cannabis, a couple seasons, they got to get rid of the soil because they want to make sure they don't get any bacteria or diseases. I get it. So it's like super high quality stuff. And from a guy I trust with all really good things in there. And previous to that, I filled it up with like organic local compost. It's certified. In addition, I put trace minerals in things and worm castings and different insect frases that increase the microbial count. Plus, I have lots of earthworms that are digesting and pooping out their earthworm castings, one of the best fertilizers on the planet. So I'm quite confident that I have some of the best soil on the entire planet. And even if you're growing organic, doesn't mean you have the best soil, because organic tells you kind of like what you can't do. It doesn't tell you what you should or must do. It's kind of like the word vegan. If somebody says, hey, I'm vegan, then it means, okay, you know that person doesn't eat animal products. If they're a true vegan, but there's a lot of fake vegans, maybe like me, some people would say I'm a fake vegan. I try not to say the word. I try to say plant-based, because I eat honey on rare occasion that's sustainably sourced and the bees were treated properly from like usually a friend's hive. But that being said, honey is not an ideal food, nor should it be consumed on any wide basis, because any processed sugar sweetener, whether that's honey, agave, coconut syrup, coconut sap, white sugar, extracted sweeteners in general are not, as a rule actually, are not healthy for us. And we want to get our sweeteners from fresh, whole fruits, optimally. But in any case, if you're vegan, it tells what you don't eat. You don't eat animal products. And if you're organic, it tells you that the farmer doesn't use chemicals. It doesn't say that they're healthy organic farmers. Just like a vegan could be skinny bony because they're eating Coke and soda and eating Oreos that are vegan and having diet cheese, which is highly processed product, and they're not eating whole foods, plant-based, lots of raw fruits and vegetables, right? And so you guys kind of understand the difference, and people don't talk about this in the raw foods movement. There's a big difference in the quality of the produce, and in my opinion, and based on my experience, I've seen that by increasing the quality of produce I'm eating, I've become healthier, I've had more energy, and just little differences, make a big difference in the long run. So I always want to give you guys the best information, to give you guys the best opportunity to do the best things instead of just repeating the rhetoric. There's not many people I know in raw foods that actually talk about the produce quality, and to me it's something that is very important. It can make the difference in your lives between, being healthy for the long run and not, right? So yeah, produce quality. So ask the farmers at the farmers markets if you're not growing it yourself, and if you are growing it yourself, watch my other YouTube channel, Growing Your Greens, where I teach you guys how to grow the most nutritious food on the entire planet for free. and if you're not going to do that, then at least when you go to the farmers market, ask the farmers like, hey, what kind of, how do you fertilize your crops? Like, what do you add? And ask specific questions like, how do you add trace minerals? Don't ask, do you use rock dust? Because then they could just say yes. But say, how do you add the different trace minerals in the soil? How many different trace minerals do you add in the soil when you're growing your foods? Like, and actually a lot of farmers, you're going to stump them because they have no clue. They haven't researched this information that I have either, because I come back from a background of almost losing my life, and my health is the most important wealth that I have. And so I had to research and learn, in my opinion, how to do this the best way possible. And to me, having the most nutritious food, and actually a wide variety of foods like ashataba, and actually this time of year I got like chickweed and miner's lettuce growing that I eat, that like literally you just can't usually buy that in the stores, which have different phytonutrients. And so I think another thing that's important to me is for best is this something you've eaten recently, right? If it's something that you eat all the time, maybe that's not the best, because now you're missing out on nutrients from other foods. So another factor you should be concerned about is it pesticide free, right? And that's huge, right? I was just in the car the other day listening to the radio, and Home Depot has a commercial for some insect killer, right? And they're touting, oh yeah, if you buy this insect killer, you're gonna get a free sprayer and this extra stuff. And people don't understand, like, insect killers, right? Generally they're neurotoxins, and they're neurotoxins to the insect, right? And they kill the insect, and it said, yeah, use our pesticide for the bugs in your house, and it lasts a year. I was like, oh my God, that's so terrible. They don't give any disclaimers, like when you have to take medical drugs for a health condition, they tell you the disclaimers in the ad. Like, but if you read the label on the pesticide that they're telling people to spray on their house, it's going to be basically systemic for a year, hanging around in your house, that are basically neurotoxins to the bugs. In general, if they're neurotoxic to the bugs, they'll have some, in my opinion, negative effect on us, right? Just because the bugs are smaller, they need a smaller concentration of that to kill them. But just having it around in our environment, in my opinion, is not good, because some people are more chemically sensitive than others, and we don't want any amounts of neurotoxins hanging out in our lives. But that being said, conventional produce can be sprayed with a lot of different, in my opinion, bad and not healthy pesticides, right? Same with organic. Organic could be sprayed with pesticides, but they're just more natural or organic alternative versions that aren't made in a lab but made through plants. So like neem oil is something I would use, right? That being said, any organic pesticide can imbalance your system. So my goal as a gardener, as a farmer, is to not spray any even organic pesticides unless I absolutely must, and to use other practices, including building good soil to grow plants that are resistant to bugs, right? If you eat a McDonald's diet, you're more likely to get sick than if you eat a fruit and vegetable dominated leafy green rich diet, because your immune system is going to be stronger. And so that's my number one goal. And then if I have to spray water or maybe bring in some beneficial insects, that's my preference, instead of just spraying some organic, even organic pesticide that may hurt the biology and imbalance my system, right? And so ask farmers, right, if they spray pesticides, and if they do, ask them, what pesticides do you spray? Are they always organic approved or not? And then make a decision. Like sometimes I'll buy conventional produce at the farmer's market that is not sprayed with conventional pesticides, because I think, conventional fertilizers, I mean, I could deal with that. They may imbalance the fruit on some levels, but I don't want to get any kind of like pesticides that are potentially toxic, neurotoxins, into my body. So, to me, I'm just trying to like lay this all out there. So, I mean, basically, I guess to sum it up, because my strawberries are smelling pretty good right now, I'm going to eat some, is I want you guys to make the best fruit and vegetable choices for you, based on where you live, based on the produce availability, based on the freshness of the produce, based on if you've had it recently, based on the antioxidant content. I mean, I eat for antioxidant content these days. I do not eat for calories. I know some of you guys might be runners, athletes, you need a lot of calories, but I want you to take into consideration the antioxidant content of fruits. Like for example, like instead of eating a ton of bananas, I'd rather eat a ton of persimmons. They're sweeter, and they also have the beta carotene. They're a lot rich, deeper color. Plus, I just think they taste a lot better. And in my opinion, the bananas that are imported in the States, even if they're organic, they're picked way too green, and most of them are gassed up so that they ripen, and they never develop the full flavor that a banana you would eat in South Florida or in Hawaii or somewhere in the tropics where they actually are grown would taste. And that's one of the reasons why I'm not a big fan of bananas personally. So, and then, how local is the produce to you? The other thing is how much life force is in it. I mean, that's a key point to people in raw foods, is to eat life force rich foods. You're always like, John, you look pretty good, your skin's pretty good, you always have a lot of energy. Well, that's because I eat life force rich foods instead of all these dehydrated packaged raw foods that in some videos you'll see I go out to a raw food restaurant and my energy is really high, and by the end of the video I'm like really talking softer, I'm a little bit slower, and that's because these foods could slow you down. So I want you to live the maximum life you guys can by having the most energized food you guys can, by doing the best you can, and that's why I make these videos for you guys today. So if you guys enjoyed this video, please be sure to give it a thumbs up. I'll do more videos with my little tips and tricks and words of wisdom that I like to share that you're probably not going to hear anywhere else. Also, be sure to share this video with somebody else that that's into raw foods, that you think this could help, because it's kind of like almost advanced topic coursework that is not taught even by some of my friends that teach raw food nutrition, right? And they do a great job, but I'm really into the quality of the produce, the freshness of the produce, and actually the varieties of the produce. So I want you to expand the different varieties you guys are eating. So also be sure to click that subscribe button right down below so you get notified of my new and upcoming episodes. I'm coming out about every 5 to 7 days. You know where I'll show up or what you'll be learning on my YouTube channel. Also be sure to check my past episodes. My past episodes are a wealth of knowledge, over 500 episodes at this time, teach you guys all aspects on how to eat a healthy raw fruit and vegetable diet. I guess with that, my name is John Kohler with OKRaw.com. We'll see you next time. Until then, remember, keep eating your fresh fruits and vegetables. They're always the best.